This is an RNZ podcast. Salofalava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Swiswiki. Coming up, naval officers charged over Manawanui sinking in Samoa. Also, mental health still misunderstood in the region, and
we're looking at a global energy crisis that we haven't seen. Even in the 70s, this could be bigger than that.
Pacific told to brace for fuel price spike due to the Iran conflict. Charges have been laid in relation to the loss of Royal New Zealand Navy vessel HMNZS Manawanui off the coast of Samoa in October 2024. 3 naval officers face a court-martial. The vessel sank off the coast of Samoa after hitting a reef, spilling hundreds of thousands of litres of diesel and oil into the ocean. I spoke with former Auckland University law professor Bill Hodge and began by asking him for his initial thoughts on the charges.
I think they are pretty obvious when you look at the statute. It's the choice. I think the draftsman almost anticipated that commanders would be careless or negligent sometime. It certainly wasn't intentional. It's nothing like some of the usual things in the Armed Forces Discipline Act. But if it's an airplane or a ship or something or a tank, if you're careless in command and the ship or the tank or the airplane is, quote, lost, then Section 64 of the Act makes that person subject to court-martial discipline. So it makes sense to me. I mean, having my time in the military, I was on court-martial, and it's a perfectly logical way to go.
Just for our listeners, Bill, can you explain how this charge in a court-martial under the Disciplinary Act differs from, say, a normal criminal charge?
Right. All of us are covered by the standard criminal law in New Zealand, which is called the Crimes Act. But those in uniform, and that includes the Army, Navy, and the Air Force, are subject to some extra rules that you would need in a disciplined force. It includes things like mistreating a subordinate or striking a superior. It includes things like going absent without leave or AWOL, which is not a crime for an employee, but it is a crime if you're on duty, or malingering, which is faking some inability to do your job, plus the usual things in an organized force, including, for example, stealing from the force. So it's necessary to have, if you have a uniformed service, it's necessary to have some extra rules that cover people in uniform who are subject to discipline.
And what's the difference between the negligently causing and negligently permitting charges? What kind of penalties are we talking about here?
Well, first I'd say that the negligence is simply a lesser charge than, say, theft, a lesser charge than sort of deliberately harming someone or something. The punishment, if it was deliberate, it would be 10 years in prison. The maximum punishment for the negligence, keeping in mind we're talking about millions, tens of millions in some cases, the maximum punishment is 2 years in a prison if you're an officer. But there's a whole range of lesser penalties. It's like a menu that the court gets to choose from, and that includes eviction or dismissal from the service. It includes reduction in rank. It includes a fine. It includes a severe reprimand, and it includes an ordinary reprimand. So there's a range of options that the court has open if they find beyond a reasonable doubt, and the same standards apply, by the way, the same standards of proof beyond a reasonable doubt and ability to cross-examine witnesses and so on. So the court has a wide range of options.
Well, the charges that have been laid, what happens now and how long does this usually take?
In my experience, this is going with blinding speed, because the accident that is the loss of the Manawanui was when back in late 2024. Now, as a preliminary step, they had what's called a court of inquiry. And the court of inquiry was simply saying, hey, this is so serious, we need to establish what happened and what were the general causation, what's the general causation of the loss of the ship. So that was in 2025, and it was quite clear from that there was individual responsibility, although the inquiry can't find anyone individually responsible. But the facts as laid out, and if anybody wants to read it, if you simply Google Niue Court of Inquiry, and you'd get an incredibly detailed analysis of how the ship was lost. And if your readers have forgotten or didn't know, the people on the bridge had put the Niue, even though they were close to Upolu, they were close to the reef on the south side of the island of Upolu, they put it on automatic pilot. Why they did that, we don't know, but they put it on automatic pilot, and given the people on the bridge, they didn't know how to take it off automatic pilot. So I'm not surprised that the court is going ahead. But what I would like to say, if the listeners aren't familiar with this, the Court of Inquiry also found that once the event happened, once it was done and the ship was fatally struck by the reef, everyone, and especially those in command, remained calm. They were in control, and thanks to their heroism, really, there was no loss of life. I mean, when you lose a ship in strange waters at night, certainly not surprising that somebody might drown. But thanks to the careful control of those in charge, everyone got off safely.
A Pacific-wide study looking into mental health and well-being has just wrapped up its series in Niue this week. The Pacific Mental Health Survey was first launched in Samoa and Tonga almost 3 years ago, with findings revealing a notable prevalence of mental health distress. I spoke to the survey's co-lead, Sir Colin Tukuitonga, and began by asking him about how the work came about.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, through the Ministry of Health, Polynesian Health Corridors, funded us at the University of Auckland to do a mental health and well-being study in Polynesian countries. So we've completed Samoa, Tonga, Tokelau, and currently the team are doing the work here in Niue. Basically, everyone has an opinion about mental health problems, mental health disorders in the Pacific, but there's never been any formal study, and our study is really the first one to do that. And it's really trying to look at what are the common mental health disorders, how are people getting on with mental health in the islands for the purposes of improving services. So as I say, it's a study across Polynesia, and we are currently doing the field work in Niue, which is not yet, it's underway at the moment.
What's the current attitude or perceptions of mental health among Pacific people in the region?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We've come from many years of people believing that mental disorders are due to, or at least the cultural interpretations have tended to be mental disorders reflect problems with deceased ancestors or ghosts or the devil, those kinds of things. In other words, many people believe that mental disorders reflect possession by evil spirits, those kinds of things. It is changing, but that generally has been the case, and obviously the studies will help us try to understand those things further.
Are there any adequate mental health services in the Pacific, or is there a lack of?
I mean, it's a bit like Aotearoa, to be honest. I was involved in the big Te Rau Hinangaro study here in New Zealand, where pretty much only half the people with mental disorders get access to services that they need. In other words, it's very difficult to get access to services if you have a mental health problem, and I suspect it's probably still the case here in Aotearoa. And as you can imagine, services are not particularly well supported in many of the islands, and people will probably, we've known from other parts of this study that people have tended to have trouble getting access to services, and clearly more is needed. We need to support mental health workforce as appropriate for the countries, those kinds of things.
Okay. What happens next once the survey is completed?
So obviously the data needs to be analysed and interpreted with our colleagues in Niue, and to then try to summarise the key findings. And we're to report back to the Polynesian Health Corridor and the Niue government the findings from the study. Is signal in the beginning. Obviously, the study findings will be important in developing mental health policy and service delivery in the islands where we've completed the study, and this would be very similar in Niue. So we've just got to finish the field work, analyse the data, interpret the findings, and then do a report to the Polynesian Health Corridor and the Niue government.
Fuel prices are expected to jump in the Pacific in the next few months. Analysts have warned crude oil prices could climb as high as $100 per barrel following a conflict kicked off by Israeli and US attacks on Iran. Experts warn it could hit at the heart of Pacific industry. Kaya Selby has the latest.
Pacific Island fuel prices are generally high and volatile due to a dependence on imports and the distance that those imports have to travel. Imported fuel is usually bought in bulk with payment in advance so as to hedge against shocks. But soaring fuel prices could embed themselves inevitably into the cost of freight that the region so depends on. Business expert and Vanuatu development envoy Glenn Craig says it will take a few months before the pain is truly felt.
If you're on a busy motorway and there's an accident on the road 30 kilometres ahead, it might take half an hour to trickle down to the end, but it eventually gets to you. So we are going to get this spike regardless.
He says it will ultimately depend on how long the conflict lasts, which, according to US President Donald Trump right now, could be for over a month.
Generally, we're hedging in advance for a little bit, but eventually that's going to get us. We're generally ordering anywhere between 3 to 4 months in advance. People a lot smarter than me be looking at it, but I would dare say we're looking at something in maybe 4 months' time.
Meanwhile, some analysts are predicting the worst. Iran has cracked down on transit through the Strait of Hormuz completely, and Qatar have shut off their petroleum gas output as a consequence. MST Financial's Saul Kunovic says it has the hallmarks of a looming disaster.
We're looking at a global energy crisis that we haven't seen even in the 70s. This could be bigger than that, and that will lead to a global economic crisis. And then you'll tend to find more isolated nations which have less diversified economies and less ability to hedge that can be most at risk.
But despite it all, there is one Pacific country that will likely benefit: Papua New Guinea.
A spike in prices will actually lead to rising prices for their exports and therefore rising tax take for the Papua New Guinean government. So they're going to be one of the few, perhaps one of the only Pacific Island nations who could economically benefit from a global energy price shock.
PNG's Foreign Minister Justin Chichenko has admitted as much, but he says he worries about what the impact will be on consumers.
It will definitely benefit PNG, but then there's the consumer. They're getting hit left, right and centre. We just hope that this war can end sooner rather than later so that the impact is not for long term, but for short term.
Prime Minister James Marape has publicly committed to assist the economy and protect Papua New Guineans in such an event.
PNG's government says it has requested foreign consular help to evacuate Papua New Guinea citizens caught up in the Middle East conflict. The government says it's reaching out to Australia to include PNG citizens in their contingency and evacuation plans if the situation escalates and warrants repatriation. Johnny Blades spoke with PNG's Foreign Minister, Justin Kachenko, and he began by asking him how many PNG citizens are in the Middle East region.
Yeah, no, it's still a number that we are putting together. A lot of, not only from Papua New Guinea, but from the Pacific, have gone either private business or holiday or schooling or work and have not registered with the appropriate embassies or consulates. Papua New Guinea is only just setting up our brand new embassy in UAE, and we were just about to send the advanced team from the Foreign Affairs Department to finalise all the details as it was approved by the National Executive Council. And this was on the basis of also the recent visit of the Prime Minister to UAE only 3 or 4 weeks ago. So the situation is that we've temporarily put the setup of the embassy on hold until more positive and peaceful situation comes about in the Middle East, especially in UAE, as they're being attacked by Iran at the moment, and it's not a very good environment or situation to do anything at this point in time. But we will keep on getting advice from the ambassadors in Canberra, UAE, and other officials on the situation. But for knowing how many Papua New Guineans are actually over there, we are still working it out, and we'll put out a notice already. But also, Australia has put out their assistance in also assisting any Pacific Islanders or Papua New Guineans as well in this situation. So we'll work with our close neighbours and any of the Papua New Guineans that want to leave that are there. We encourage them to be registered immediately and get out as soon as possible. But with all the airspace now closed and borders closed, it might be a bit difficult. In Jerusalem, we have our deputy ambassador and his family there at the moment, and they are in the bunkers seeking cover and safety as required when the sirens and the emergency alerts go out. So we're keeping a close watch on that. But yes, at this point in time, we have not got a true correct number of how many Papua New Guineans would be in that region.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, we could assume it's probably, hundreds, more than dozens, maybe less than thousands?
No, I would say, I think in Israel there's about 10. Okay. And maybe UAE, couple of dozen. I don't think it's in the hundreds.
Yeah,
no,
right.
I don't think it's in the hundreds at all.
Okay.
But maybe no more than 20.
Yep, fair enough. And what's your government's position on the actual actions of Israel and the US in the last couple of days? Does it support what's happened?
Well, Papua New Guinea is always been against terrorism. It's been against any terrorist organisation or state. We want to live in a peaceful, harmonious, safe and sound community and place to live in. And we have supported the United States and Israel from day one, all the way through, in their plight to tackle these terrorist organizations and to live in a peaceful society. So for us, Iran is a country that harbors and works and is part of this criminal and terrorist element. So we don't want to have anything to do with that at all.
Okay. I mean, there's no doubting PNG's support for Israel over the years. Very consistent. But, this action hasn't been authorised by the UN Security Council and has occurred without evidence of an imminent threat. Don't we want, in the Pacific region, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, don't we want international law respected?
That's a fair call, fair question. I think there's a lot more behind the scenes that we don't realise. And the truth will prevail and come out at the end of the day. But at the moment, we have a country that is just about to launch its and expose its nuclear arsenal that which we can't have in our world. especially when they support terrorism and harbour terrorism. And the situation is the Pacific has had enough of nuclear issues from the past, and totally is against from the Rarotonga Agreement to others against any nuclear proliferation in any country that cannot control it or that will use it for devious or other means. So in that regard, we can't work with countries that just also don't want to follow the rule of law, internationally or domestic. But we'll
so
see.
Who are you talking about there? You're talking about Israel or Iran or the US?
No, Iran.
Okay, so
Iran.
Right. So, I mean, the justification for this attack sounds very similar to Vladimir Putin's justification for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. You know, that state is being used for terror, so forth. Isn't this a matter of a bigger country who can easily militarily dominate this other country, just moving in on their own accord and not going through the rules that the international community has set out, which are really in danger? I mean, you'd be worried, wouldn't you, if Indonesia wanted to, invade?
Of course. I mean, there's rules, as I said. I think it's there is a bigger picture than we're actually seeing that is going on here, and the truth will prevail. I'm sure Israel and America wouldn't strike for any reason, for no reason at all. And for us, Papua New Guinea is only a very small country in the bigger picture. I mean, all we want is peace and harmony in the Pacific, and in our world.
Fair,
and
yeah.
When we look at what Iran has been doing over many, many years, they don't care about that. They don't care about their people. And, it's a situation where Israel's had enough, the Americans have had enough, and at the end of the day, we just want to live in a peaceful society. So, but for PNG, we'll support those that want to live in an environment and in a community and in a country that has the opportunity of being in a peaceful and sound environment.
Okay. And with the energy prices, we can expect there might be some volatility there and probably going up. How's PNG placed? Because maybe in a way, I wonder if Papua New Guinea could benefit being a, petroleum exporting country. Is this something you think PNG can do at scale to maybe not be so affected by the uncertainty and the chaos coming?
PNG in this sort of situation is in a very good position. And, with the oil prices will probably go sky high because of a lack of production getting through to other countries, it will definitely benefit PNG. But then there's the other side where fuel prices for the domestic market will then go up. So it's a balancing act. On one side you're getting bigger prices for your oil and your commodities, and then when you're selling it, and then when it comes to the consumer, they're getting hit left, right, and centre because of the situation of the commodity prices going up, because trying to get it to them and domesticate it will increase dramatically. So it's a catch two situation.
Yeah.
One side you're doing well, and the other side, and unfortunately, it's the consumers that will cop it.
Yeah.
And the businesses that will cop it because of the transportation costs and fuel costs going up, and then that has to go on to the goods and services to the people, and they are the ones that end up paying for it. So it's good in one way, but definitely won't help our people in the long run.
Yeah. And look, my understanding of the petroleum sort of sector is very rough, really. But the stuff that PNG produces and exports, is that not necessarily the stuff that your domestic market is using, just people filling up their car. Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
Correct. That's exactly right. We export the raw product out through the refinery with Exxon, and our biggest trading partners in the petroleum sector, of course, are China, Japan, and Taiwan, and they're some of our biggest trading partners when it comes to our petroleum products. So they will still have access. That will not stop. But we'll have to look at the bigger picture going down the line when other areas dry up for them. But we've only got so much we can give too. So it's really going to be a really interesting situation going forward to see how it all balances out at the end of the day. We just hope, I think, the most important thing, we just hope that this war can end sooner rather than later, so that the impact is not for long term, but for short term.
That was PNG's Foreign Affairs Minister, Justin Kachinko, speaking there to Johnny Blades. You can listen to an extended version of the interview in the online version of today's show at rnz.co.nz/Pacific. That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā, soifua.